This tutorial walks through the program year 2026 VCAP practice ranking sheet, also known as Form 6. This form is required to be included with all applications submitted to the VCAP steering committee. This sheet will go into effect July 1st, 2025. Looking through this sheet, you'll see green cells. Those green cells require some sort of data entry, either a drop-down menu or a numerical entry. If we work our way through the sheet, you can see here, little prompts pop up. So when I select practice, it tells me to select the practice code. When you click the drop-down arrow, you'll see all of the eligible VCAP BMPs, and you can select the practice code. Same thing for resource concern. There's a drop-down menu. There are 3 options: erosion, poor vegetative cover, and excess runoff. When you select one of those, you'll see that the first ranking criteria is filled out for you. You don't have to type any values in. It's already selected and the points are calculated. If you try to type, it will give you an error. Here are numerical entries. So this is where you would put in your practice or your contract number, your estimated total cost, and your estimated cost share. Working our way down the sheet, the next ranking criteria is BMP type. Here is a drop-down menu yet again. Most of the sheet is a drop-down menu. So I selected permeable pavers as my practice type, and that's what we need to find here. So permeable pavers are included as a structural BMP, so it's this first selection here, but you can see all of the other BMP types as well. I'm going to select that, and again, the points are automatically calculated. If you try to type, it will give you an error. Generally speaking, this first column is your ranking criteria. The next column is a description of those criteria. Our next ranking criteria is ownership, and it notes to only select one. So there are 3 options here. It's either for an individual private residence, it's for a public park or a school or a facility of some kind, or it's for an HOA, a business, a nonprofit. Each one of these is a drop-down menu, and again, you can only select one. So I'm going to select this one. The points are automatically calculated. Nothing additional is needed here. Moving on to the next ranking criteria, this is about partnership. So is the applicant working with a partner agency or a nonprofit? It does not mean that the applicant has just received advice or something like that. It means that the nonprofit or partner organization is actively involved in the design, the installation, and the maintenance of the BMP. These could be examples like master gardeners, master naturalists, or other nonprofits, things like that. This is drop-down menu as well. The next criteria is about public accessibility of the BMP and its educational value. So this criteria is not for instances where maybe a homeowner puts a BMP in their front yard and it's visible by walking down the sidewalk. That does not qualify for these points. These points also have educational value. So it's for instances where a BMP is installed at a school or a public park, and there is public accessibility as well as educational value of some kind. So signs, or even classes that the BMP is incorporated into. The next criteria is about the interception of impervious runoff entering a stormwater conveyance system. In the description here, you can see which BMPs qualify. If any of these BMPs are selected, they cannot have an underdrain to qualify for this criteria or these points. So even if we have permeable pavers, but if the permeable pavers have an underdrain, they do not qualify for these points. This is for situations where maybe you have a downspout that is outfalling on an impervious driveway that leads directly to a storm drain. That is a direct impervious flow, and by putting in a practice like permeable pavers, you would be intercepting that impervious flow. I'm just going to go ahead and select yes for my made-up site. The next criteria is about the slope of the practice area or the surrounding area. So as you can see, it says select slope category. That means it's another drop-down menu. There are 3 options here. BMP manages poor vegetative cover or erosion on slopes greater than or equal to 15%. The BMP manages excess runoff to a slope greater than or equal to 15%. Or it's not applicable, doesn't have a slope in the practice site or nearby. Let's say we need more information on that because that's a little vague. Here I will direct you down to the second tab of this sheet, which says README. This is an information page. So the first column, again, is just the ranking criteria. The second column is the purpose of that ranking criteria. Then it's the description, which matches the ranking sheet itself. And then there's a column that is just further explanation of each of these criteria. So if we scroll down to the slope section, that's right here, we can see that the purpose of this criteria is to prioritize steep slopes that convey water quickly and therefore increase erosive forces of water. Here are 3 options that were listed on the ranking sheet itself. And then here are the further explanations of each of them. So for the BMP manages poor vegetative cover or erosion on a slope greater than or equal to 15%, we can see that this applies to conservation landscapings that provide cover to a critical slope of 15% or greater. So I selected permeable pavers as my practice type. I know that this is not an option for me now. The second option is BMP manages excess runoff to a slope greater than or equal to 15%. So this is any BMP that intercepts runoff above a critical slope of 15% or greater and either reduces the volume or the velocity of the runoff onto the slope, or it safely conveys runoff down the critical slope. So this applies to structural practices that are placed within 40 feet of the top of a slope. Permeable pavers are a structural practice, so it could potentially qualify for this. But let's say my site is very flat. The third option is not applicable. So if the site has a slope less than 15%, not applicable is what we need to select here. I'm going to go ahead back to my ranking sheet. And for this criteria, then I'm going to pick not applicable. You'll see nothing showed up here. That's because the points possible are 0, 5, and 10. By selecting not applicable, it's worth 0 points. So this is not blank, this is just a 0. It has calculated for you. Again, if you try to type in anything, it will stop you. The next criteria is about the proximity to a stormwater conveyance system or a waterway. So is the BMP location within 40 feet of a stormwater conveyance system, or is it within 100 feet? Stormwater conveyance systems are classified as things like ditches, storm drains, or direct waterways like tributaries or even rivers. So I'll go ahead and select this for my made-up site. The next criteria is about stormwater management facilities downstream of the VCAP BMP. So is there a stormwater management facility downstream from the site or not? This is really getting at whether the runoff is entering a natural waterway or if it's going through a stormwater management facility before that. So let's say there is a storm drain that the VCAP BMP is treating the runoff that's entering that storm drain. And that storm drain goes and outfalls to a retention pond. That would be considered treatment. So it would not receive points for this criteria. Let's say the VCAP BMP is slowing down runoff that is entering a river or a tributary, a creek. That is a natural waterway. We would consider that untreated. So you would select yes if the BMP is treating runoff that is entering a natural waterway. The next criteria here is about whether or not the BMP is located within a sediment or nutrient TMDL or within a phase 1 or 2 MS4. I'll direct you back to this README tab of the Excel file. If we go down here, we can see the criteria. And in this box, there are actually links that you can highlight, copy, and paste into your own browser and determine if your BMP site is within a sediment or nutrient TMDL or is listed as a phase 1 or 2 MS4. From this point forward, all of the entries will be numerical, not a drop-down menu. So the next criteria is treatment area, and we can see that it's not applicable to most conservation landscapings, with the exception of filter strips. It's also not applicable to living shorelines. So the first entry here, see it says enter square footage versus the previous criteria that we went through. It says select yes or leave blank, and this dropdown pops up. Here, nothing pops up. It just tells you to enter the square footage. So we know that that's a numerical entry. So we need to enter the impervious area treated in square feet. And there's a note here that says it should include the surface area for impervious surface removal, permeable pavers, or green roofs being converted. So let's say we are converting a 1,200 square foot driveway, and there's also 400 square feet of roof area getting directed into the practice through a downspout. I would type in here 1,600 square feet, counting for both of those areas. And then the contributing drainage area is everything that drains into the BMP and the BMP itself. Here, I just said we're converting 1,200 square feet of impervious surface into permeable pavers, and we're also directing 400 square feet of roof area. So both of those are impervious. So our CDA and impervious area treated should be the same. The surface area of the practice itself, based on my example here, would be 1,200 square feet, excluding that roof area that's being directed into the practice. So I went on to the next criteria here, which is the installed area. Each of these very clearly states which BMPs they're applicable to. So the surface area of the practice is for almost everything every practice type. The treatment gallons is specific to dry wells and rainwater harvesting. And then these two, which include the linear footage of the BMP and the area of revegetation, are specific to living shorelines. So because I selected a permeable paver practice type, I'm entering the surface area of the BMP, which is 1,200 square foot. Down here, you'll see that this cell is green as well. If you try to type into it, it will stop you. This is green because it's just telling you that you have met the minimum rank. I'm gonna start deleting things to show you what happens when you don't hit the minimum rank. There we go. So if this box is red, you know that you have not met the minimum rank. If it's green, you know you have met the minimum rank. Oops. Let's do an example of a conservation landscaping now. So let's say I have a CL3, a mixed planting bed, and the resource concern is poor vegetative cover. I'll type in a fake contract number. Here is the estimated total cost and then the estimated cost share. Again, we don't have to do anything with this first criteria. We jump down to practice type. You'll see conservation landscaping is here, CL1, 2, and 3. So this is applicable to meadows, tree plantings, and mixed planting beds. I will go ahead and select that. We'll say it's for an individual private residence. They are not working with an agency. It's not accessible to the public. This is not applicable. Okay, what about a slope? Let's see. So let's say there is a slope and the BMP manages poor vegetative cover or erosion on a slope of greater than or equal to 15%. I'll go ahead and select that. See, the points are already calculated. And let's say the runoff goes straight down to a river of some kind. So I'll select yes for that. And since it's going down to a natural waterway, I'm going to select this as well, since there's no treatment before it outfalls into a natural waterway. And it is within a sediment TMDL. Okay. So the treatment area here, we can see it's not applicable to CL3. So I'm going to leave those blank. The installed area, enter surface area of BMP in square footage. Okay, that's applicable to all conservation landscaping, so I will put that in as well. Let's say it's 500 square feet. Okay. We're not going to enter the treatment gallons, and these two are just for living shorelines, so we're done. And our rank is 96.1. Let's do another conservation landscaping mixed planting bed. This time I'll pick excess runoff. And don't forget your contract number. The total estimated cost this time is quite a bit more. And they've reached the cap for the cost share. Again, we don't have to do anything in this section. This section, the BMP type, again, we want to select conservation landscaping, which includes CL1, 2, and 3. And it's for an individual residence. They're not working with a partner. The BMP is not publicly accessible. It does not qualify for these points. Is there a slope? No, let's say there's no slope on this site. And it's not, oh, maybe it is. Let's see. Let's say it is within 40 feet of a stormwater conveyance system of some kind or a natural waterway. And therefore, it also, actually, no. Let's say it's within 40 feet of a stormwater conveyance system, but that stormwater conveyance system goes to a treatment facility downstream. So we would select 40 feet within a stormwater conveyance system, but we would leave the absence of a stormwater management facility blank. But let's say it is in an MS4 phase 1 or 2. Okay. Treatment area, we can see that it's not applicable to CL 1, 2, 3, or 5. Okay, so we'll leave those blank. The installed area, here is where we would put in our surface area of the BMP since it's applicable to all conservation landscapings. Let's say it's 1,500 square feet. Okay. Hopefully you've noticed something as soon as I've scrolled down, but there is a new ranking criteria here. The new ranking criteria is the unforested pervious area of the parcel. So this is only applicable to conservation landscapings that are meadows, tree plantings, and mixed planting beds. And it only appears if the practice does not rank. So this is only applicable to meadows, tree plantings, or mixed planting beds that do not rank. If we go to our README tab and scroll down, you'll see the criteria here and the further explanation. So this is the unforested pervious area of the parcel, only applicable to conservation landscaping 1, 2, or 3. The purpose of it is to prioritize conservation landscaping practices that convert large areas of available space. Basically allowing for a proportion. So if you have a very tiny yard, but you're converting all of it, you do get points for that. The explanation of this says only applicable to meadows, tree plantings, and mixed planting beds that do not meet the minimum rank. The goal is to identify the total area of the property that is unforested, pervious, unoccupied, and free of existing beds. This area should not be densely forested or covered by impervious surfaces like concrete, asphalt, or compacted gravel, and it must be free of structures like buildings, playgrounds, water features, pools, etc. Measure the total available pervious area at the time of the site assessment, not future alterations of any kind. So if they mention that they're going to install a pool down the line, that is not something that you need to take into account at the time of the site assessment. So let's say your site looks like this, a simple site. There is pervious coverage. Pretty much all of it, actually all of it, is unforested. So how would we go about calculating the unforested pervious area of this parcel? Well, step 1 would be a simple way is to go on GIS and see the tax area square footage. So we can see that that's 21,281 and some change square feet. That's their actual parcel size. Now that we know the total parcel size, we can measure the impervious area that is there and then deduct that out, since we can see the rest of it is pervious and unforested. So if you were to measure this, it would look something like this. And we have our total parcel size. Then we can deduct out the impervious, and now we have this left. So this value that's left would be your unforested pervious area of the parcel. So coming back to our ranking sheet, they're installing a 1,500 square foot practice. They have 12,545 square feet to play with to actually install a practice on. And that proportion actually gives us just enough points to get it over their minimum ranking score. Some sites can get more complicated. So this parcel has water and tree coverage. I went ahead and got the tax area square footage, which is this value right here. This is the total square footage of the parcel. From there, I measured the area that is water. I also measured the house and I measured the driveway. Flipping back to satellite view, I noticed there was a pool that I did not measure yet, so I went ahead and measured that area as well. The next measurement I took was my estimate of the densely forested area. I want to emphasize that this is an estimate and does require field verification. Even with field verification, this will remain an estimate. There is no way to really pinpoint the exact area that is densely forested. We are giving it our best estimate. I picked this area because I can see some ground here, and I also know that there is a driveway going through the property. So this area appears from the satellite imagery to be the most densely forested. Is it 100% accurate? No, but this is an estimate. I highly suggest taking a lot of photos of the site, maybe more than you're used to taking for VCAP practices, really to get a sense of the full parcel. I want to also emphasize that VCAP practices can absolutely go under canopy coverage. The priority or the purpose of this ranking criteria is to prioritize conservation landscaping practices that convert large areas of available space. That does not mean that there can't be a resource concern in this area and a VCAP practice placed there. This is simply an estimate to provide a proportion. With all of that being said, I took the total parcel area and I deducted the water, I deducted the house, the driveway, the pool, and that estimated forested area that requires field verification. But again, remember, it will still be an estimate. From there, we have roughly 45,000 square foot of unforested pervious area to work with. Let's do an example of rainwater harvesting. So here I'll put in my contract number. Select rainwater harvesting as the practice type. Resource concern is excess runoff. Let's say the total estimated cost is $3,000. The estimated cost share is 44. Okay, again, we don't have to do anything with this section. Here, we're going to select the BMP type. Rainwater harvesting is right there. So I'm going to go ahead and select that one. Let's say this is for an individual. They're not working with anyone. It's not publicly accessible. It doesn't intercept impervious runoff. There's no slope to consider. Say they are within 40 feet of a river, and therefore there's no stormwater treatment downstream. They're not within a TMDL or an MS4. Okay, so for treatment area, you can see it's not applicable to most conservation landscapings except for filter strips, nor is it applicable to living shorelines. It doesn't say anything about rainwater harvesting, so I'm going to go ahead and type in the square footage of the roof that is draining into the rain cistern, the rainwater harvesting system. So let's say it's a 1,200 square foot roof. That is all impervious. Therefore, the contributing drainage area is the same because it's all impervious. For the installed area, we can see this first one, the surface area of the BMP doesn't say anything about rainwater harvesting, so that's not applicable. We do want to enter the treatment gallons here. Okay, so that's applicable to dry wells and rainwater harvesting. So this is what I need to enter. And it tells me to enter gallons. I want to be clear that this is the treatment gallon, not the capacity of the tank. So for 1,200 square feet draining into a cistern, a 1-inch storm would be 711 gallons. That is the value that you put into this slot. Let's say they purchase an 800-gallon tank. You would not put 800 gallons into this spot. You're entering the treatment volume, not the tank capacity. So you can see, since we selected rainwater harvesting, the criteria here for conservation landscapings isn't even available because it's not applicable to this practice type. And our ranking score is 122.5. The box is green, letting us know that this practice does rank.